Deep in the heart of South America, long before European maps charted its rivers and forests, a vibrant culture was taking root. Before the year 1000, the people who had come to be known as the Guarani were part of a great migration, spreading from the Amazon basin. As members of the vast Tupi-Guarani linguistic family, they journeyed outward, their language and customs echoing through the landscapes that would one day become Paraguay, northern Argentina, southern Brazil, and parts of Bolivia and Uruguay. Their lives were a rhythm of movement and settlement. They were a semi-sedentary people, clearing sections of forest to build their communities. At the center of these communities stood the Maloca, or longhouse, a large communal dwelling that housed multiple families, binding them together under a single thatched roof. Here, life was shared, stories were told, and traditions were passed from one generation to the next. Agriculture was the bedrock of their existence. They were masterful farmers, cultivating fields of cassava, maize, beans, and squash. Sweet potatoes provided sustenance, while cotton was grown and woven into textiles. But their world was not confined to the cultivated plot. The dense forests and winding rivers were also their larders. Men would venture out to hunt tapir and capybara, while fishing expeditions yielded a bounty from the waters. Women and children gathered wild fruits, nuts, and medicinal plants. Their knowledge of the natural world encyclopedic and profound. Their spirituality was not contained within temples or represented by carved idols. Instead, it was woven into the very fabric of their daily existence. The Guarani saw the world as alive with spiritual forces inhabiting trees, rivers, animals, and the sky itself. Their cosmology was passed down through rich oral traditions, myths, and legends that explained the creation of the world and humanity's place within it. They revered a supreme creator, a figure often called Candayara, meaning our owner or our lord, who was the source of all life but remained distant from the everyday affairs of mortals. Their connection to the divine was personal, found in the rustle of leaves, the flow of water, and the guidance of their shamans. This intricate world, governed by the cycles of nature and ancient tradition, was on the verge of a cataclysmic shift. In the 16th century, a new people arrived from across the ocean, the Spanish colonizers, driven by ambitions of gold, glory, and God, sailed up the Parana and Paraguay rivers, entering the heart of Guarani territory. The initial encounters were a mix of curiosity, trade, and misunderstanding, but soon gave way to a brutal reality. The Spanish instituted the encomienda system, a thinly veiled form of slavery that granted colonists control over indigenous labor and lands. The Guarani were forced to toil in fields and mines, their lands seized, their communities fractured. Amidst this oppression, seeds of defiance were sown. The story of a Guarani woman known as India Juliana became a powerful symbol of resistance. Forced into servitude by a Spanish encomendero in the newly founded city of Asuncion, she refused to submit. Her act of killing her abusive master sent shockwaves through the colonial establishment, becoming an emblematic tale of early indigenous defiance against subjugation. While her rebellion was ultimately crushed, her spirit of resistance would echo through the centuries. As the 17th century dawned, a different kind of European arrived. In 1609, Jesuit missionaries began their ambitious project in the region. They established a network of unique settlements known as reductions. These were not mere churches. They were sprawling, highly organized mission towns designed to gather the dispersed Guarani populations into centralized communities. The goal was to convert them to Christianity and reshape their lives around a model of structured communal labor and religious instruction. The reductions grew at an astonishing rate. What began as small outposts swelled into massive, thriving towns, some housing tens of thousands of Guarani. Life within these missions was a complex blend of protection and control. The Jesuits protected people from the harshness of colonists and slave raiders. The Guarani had to give up a lot of their traditions in return. The authority of the shamans was replaced by that of the priests. Traditional ceremonies gave way to Catholic Mass and sacraments. They swapped their freewheeling life for a strict routine of prayer, work, and training. The Guarani are super adaptable and totally took in these new influences, making them their own. They became renowned for their artistic skills, producing intricate wood carvings, paintings, and music that fused European Baroque styles with indigenous motifs. The mission militias, armed and trained by the Jesuits, became a formidable defensive force, protecting the settlements from external threats. For over a century, This unique social experiment flourished, creating a distinct Guaran Christian culture that was unlike anything else in the Americas. But the fate of these missions would not be decided by the priests or the people who lived in them. It would be decided by kings and diplomats in faraway Europe. By the mid-18th century, Spain and Portugal were really at each other's throats. The border between their South American empires was a source of constant tension, and the Jesuit missions were located right in the contested territory. In 1750, the two crowns signed the Treaty of Madrid, a pact designed to resolve their territorial disputes. In a stroke of a pen, a vast area of land, including 7 of the most prosperous Jesuit missions on the eastern side of the Uruguay River, was ceded from Spain to Portugal. The treaty came with a devastating order. The Guarani inhabitants of these 7 missions were to abandon their homes, their fields, their churches, and all they had built over generations. They were to be forcibly relocated to Spanish territory. For the Guarani, this was an unthinkable betrayal. They had defended this land for Spain, transformed it from wilderness into a thriving society. It was their home, blessed by their ancestors and built with their labor. They would not surrender it to their longtime enemies, the Portuguese, who they associated with brutal slave raids. Their refusal to leave ignited a conflict that would become known as the Guarani War, or the War of the 7 Reductions. Guarani warriors, led by the brave Tupi-Guarani, fiercely fought to protect their land and way of life. Armed with a mix of traditional weapons and firearms from the mission armories, they waged a desperate resistance against the combined military might of the Spanish and Portuguese empires. The Guarani fought with incredible bravery, but they were ultimately outmatched. The colonial armies, equipped with superior firepower and professional military leadership, marched relentlessly on the missions. Decisive battles resulted in catastrophic losses for the Guarani forces. Thousands were killed, their militias crushed, and their leaders executed. The dream of having her own mission territory was totally crushed by a wave of violence. The war's aftermath was a tragedy of immense proportions. The victorious armies dismantled the mission communities, forcing the survivors to flee. The highly structured society that had defined Guarani life for 150 years collapsed. Populations were fragmented and dispersed, scattering across the region. Some were pushed back into serving colonial landowners, while others hid deep in the forests, trying to rebuild their lives away from Europeans. Their lands were taken, their communities were broken, and the special culture of the missions disappeared for good. The war ended a chapter for the Guarani people, leaving them scattered and uncertain in a land that was once theirs.